the healthcare industry is very different. So this is the first time I'm working in the healthcare industry. But I remember when I joined MYDAWA, I was super overwhelmed. There were so many problems, not problems, but opportunities that I saw, which is good, yeah. So when you look at MYDAWA, it's more or less like an e-commerce platform. It's an e-commerce platform, but focusing more on medication and, of course, personal care, beauty, etc. So there's no big difference compared to where I was before. It's just that the problems to be solved are quite different. And of course, the application of the technology is quite different. But I believe that with the team we have at MYDAWA and the abilities we have, capabilities we have, we can really disrupt further the industry. Yeah.
Hotels have actually become asset light. If I can just go back into history, in the early 20s, hotels started off as you build and you run it. So you go, you put up a brick and mortar building, you put everything in it, then you walk away and you wait for customers to come in. That's now the traditional format of business with hotels. But that was in the 20s all the way to about the 50s. But in the 50s, the hotels disrupted. And they started selling off their assets and going into contracts that are asset light. So that was actually the first format of disruption. I'm coming on to the story of Airbnb. So hotels started realizing that there's more money to be made when I'm lighter on my feet. I don't have to own the building because it's also investment heavy. I can go into franchises or management contracts. So a lot of big brands, the Hiltons, the Marriotts, started offloading their assets to get into these kinds of contracts because you get a fee. There is a fee that the owner of the building gets. There is a management contract fee, there are bonuses, there are monthly fixed rates. That's really how hotels started disrupting. And now, fast forward into the early 2010s, when Airbnb came in, it did seem that it disrupted hotel business. But if you're a business traveler, you may book a hotel, and if you're a leisure traveler, you may book Airbnb. So the needs, again, are very closely related to what kind of hospitality outfit you will choose. And then again, Airbnb has, I would say it's oversupplied because everybody here can potentially get into Airbnb. If you have a spare bedroom in your house or you have a spare asset somewhere, you can easily get into Airbnb. So you've got a lot of supply. Whereas hotels, you're limited because you go into destinations based on R&D, which you talked about earlier. Hotels do a lot of research and development before they come into markets like Africa, because it's not a very clearly understood market. So you'll find that now we've got a lot of brands coming into Kenya, into Africa, because there's something in it for them. So as much as Airbnb may seem like it disrupted hotels, I think it suits its audience and it suits a very different kind of purpose. And I think both of us, hotels and Airbnb, are happily coexisting, because also hotels with extra inventory, hotels are listing onto Airbnb. So you have a 300-bedroom hotel, that's a lot of inventory to sell in a day. Remember I told you I'm the chick who goes to sell ndaos and beds. That's a lot of inventory. So you will say in a day, I can sell 10 rooms. I'll put out of my 300 inventory, I'll put 10 rooms. So I have 290, my team and I, to deal with. Or 1,000 rooms, and I'll sell 80 on Airbnb. So hotels and Airbnb are more and more working as partners. Because at the end of the day, it's to fulfill a need of the customer who needs accommodation. Hotel also offers more. You've got F&B in there, you've got wellness and spa in there, you've got so many other add-ons that Airbnb may not provide, because Airbnb is really traditionally just providing accommodation. If you get breakfast, it's a cherry on the top.
So I joined Nation Media Group on February the 3rd, I think, and COVID came on March the 10th. The brief I had gotten, well, we have a cost problem, not a revenue problem. We're making enough money, but we're spending all of it. So you come into a job and you're trying to understand, this is 2-3 weeks, you're trying to be humble and not what everybody else is thinking. Why do we think we have the challenge we have? And so you're just trying to settle, and then this COVID somewhere in China, it'll never get here, it won't affect us, and then it comes and they close down everything. So remember, you had a cost problem. So they were making money. They didn't need you there to tell them how to make money. They needed you there to tell them how to run the business more cost effectively. Because there's no way you're going to make 1 billion shillings a year and then you're reporting a 50 million loss. There's a big problem. But here comes COVID, and just before you figure out how to deal with the cost problem, you're hit with a revenue problem. Because government has shut down everything. Advertisers have gone into survival mode and decided the only way to save their businesses is to stop spending. People are not coming into town anymore, so they're not buying newspapers. Yeah? All these events which we go to cover and all these news things, nobody's appearing for them. People are at home, but they still want to be entertained. So your business has become more important to them because that's how they are passing their time. But there's no money for it. And so you then have to start thinking, again, the business we are in, you cannot create content without being in touch with people. And so also, you cannot be in touch with people. Or, and to answer a question, to speak to something that was spoken to earlier, we still have to send our reporters out to cover the COVID story when everybody has been told to stay away. Then, because a newspaper is not selling, because again, people have gone ahead and said, if you touch the newspaper, you'll get COVID. So, remember Nation Media Group, our primary business is newspapers. TV is a secondary business. So the business that feeds us is the newspaper. So to answer your question is then you start thinking about what are the things, and again, what is the job that needs to be done for the audience? So how do we keep our business alive? By answering the job that needs to be done for our audience. And so the first thing we then had to then sit and say, people are now at home, their children are at home, so the children are now at home fully. The people are so exhausted about this COVID story, so what other stories do you tell them? How do you make the things they are dealing with things that they can feel a bit of hope with? And so the first thing we did is our 10 o'clock slot became a party. Like it was just entertainment after entertainment after entertainment. And the other one was also to look at how do we deal with the well-being of our people, so reduce the number of stories we are covering. But like I mentioned earlier, we as the media should have been a bit more ready for that moment. And there were signs of that moment coming from a very long time ago, but we fought it. And when I was listening to you about Airbnb and hotels, I think that's where we were. We were like, you know what? People will always want news and information. People will always consume the newspaper. People want to know what Ruto is saying. So we were so caught up in this self-importance that it never really allowed us to prepare ourselves for the what ifs. What if people couldn't get a physical paper? What if people couldn't come to an event? How else could we co-create with them? We then started looking at solutions, tech solutions. So we then started looking at solutions. How else can a paper come out without necessarily people being in the office? So it forced us to be a different breed, but I always think we could have been better prepared. And so those are some of the things we learned over that period of time. That yes, it's nice to say, oh, Daily Nation, NTV, or Citizen, whoever you are. But the bottom line is the customer, as you would say, is looking for a story well told. Whether that story is one of doom and gloom, or whether it's an uplifting one. It's how well you tell that story and how much you center their need in that story so that by the time they are done, they feel that It wasn't just about anything else. It was about how it made them feel or what it asked them.
The biggest change, I would say, is that the consumer expectations are now higher more than ever. And when I actually joined MYDAWA, and for MYDAWA, the delivery SLA, we call it SLA, is about 2 to 4 hours. And you're coming from Glovo where SLA is 45 minutes. So my biggest question right now is how do we get that to 45 minutes? Because there's an expectation that consumers now have. People expect to get things at the tap of a button. In fact, I remember once, I can't remember if it was the CEO of Uber who was talking about how do we get people to order for Uber with one tap. Just one tap and the driver is here. So the consumer expectation is higher more than ever. And if you don't keep up as a brand, you will have a challenge. Someone else will come in, disrupt you, and you will lag behind. So my recommendation for businesses is, in order for you to try and keep up with the business, rather the consumer changes, it's important to keep in touch. What does that mean? Talk to your consumers, get feedback, have a constant loop of feedback, because if you don't do that, if you don't understand the consumers, you will not be able to keep up. I would like to share something that she mentioned, a job to be done concept. Actually, I love that concept because as a business, you need to understand what job the consumer wants you to do. So the concept says that consumers hire or fire products to do a particular job in their lives. They want to make progress in a particular circumstance, they want to make progress, so they hire a product or fire a product to do that particular job. So, for example, when you're buying a drill in the supermarket, you're not buying the drill, you're buying the hole the drill can make. So as businesses, we need to focus on understanding what are these jobs that need to be done and how can you solve their problems, or rather, do the jobs the consumer wants you to do.
I think one of the things that hotels learned is that what other businesses can we do over and above what we are currently doing. I remember we started doing food deliveries and people were laughing at us. We made some money because we needed to see people are now in the house. So how do we get our products and services to them? They can't come to us. How else can hotels diversify from a food and beverage perspective? If customers cannot come to you, how can we package and have meals going to customers? So we actually even started partnerships with Glovo, Jumia, just to make distribution and access and visibility easier, just so you get the product outside. We started having our spa and wellness people doing short YouTube videos just to promote and say, hey, if you can't come to us, we can do organized wellness sessions with you at your home or whichever other space that you want. So the conversations revolve around how can we diversify to remain relevant in the lives and needs of the consumer. So those are ongoing conversations. And other conversations also are on empowerment, because when staff at the front line are empowered, then it's so easy to do, to create little delightful moments every day.
A huge round of applause to our panel.